All right, so today we're really diving deep into The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer.
Really a fascinating book.
It is, this book is all about like quieting that mental chatter that we all have and finding a little bit more peace, in our everyday lives. And I'm excited to unpack this with you.
Yeah, it's really about exploring our own consciousness and breaking free from those mental loops and those habits that sometimes can drive us a little crazy.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that really stood out to me was Singer's concept of the inner roommate,
Yeah.
that voice we all have in our heads.
Uh-huh.
And he really kind of shines a light on something I think we often take for granted.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting how he frames it because instead of seeing it as something that's just part of us, he's asking us to look at it as something separate, like a roommate that we can't get rid of.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really tricky, right?
Right.
Because if this roommate was a real person,
Yeah.
we'd probably like, hey, get out.
Exactly.
You need to move out.
This is too much. Yeah.
Exactly, you're too much.
Yeah.
So think about it. This voice is constantly chattering away, like commenting on everything we do, second guessing our decisions, bringing up the past, worrying about the future.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It's like having someone constantly whispering anxieties and doubts right in your ear.
Yeah, and it creates these blockages. I mean, Singer even talks about how it affects our energy flow, how it creates blockages in our energy, which leads to just more turmoil mentally and emotionally.
So it's not just about feeling annoyed by this voice.
Right.
It's about the actual impact it has on our well-being.
Exactly. And it's that knot in your stomach that won't go away. And the more you kind of engage with that roommate, the tighter it gets.
Yeah, it makes me think about, I call them my mindful mints.
Right.
And it's really just me placing little pieces of art around my home, like by the door, in the kitchen places where I often feel rushed or stressed.
I love that. Tell me about the mindfulness.
Well, they're not like grand, artistic statements or anything.
Uh-huh.
They're just small, simple pieces that just remind me to pause and just take a breath and reconnect with that observing witness within.
That's really wonderful, and it aligns perfectly with what Singer's talking about. You're creating these little moments of awareness throughout the day where you can actually just step back from all that chatter and observe.
Yeah, so like my little pieces of art, they act as these reminders to disengage from my inner roommate's trauma.
And that's what he says is key, is being able to just notice it without getting swept away by it.
So like instead of saying, oh, I'm anxious,
Yeah.
you might say, I notice that my inner roommate is feeling anxious.
Right, or my inner roommate is saying all these negative things, but I don't have to listen.
Yeah, and Singer calls this the witness, right?
Yeah, so
That observing self.
that part of us that can remain still even in the midst of all the chaos, all the, whirlwind of thoughts and emotions.
It reminds me of his analogy of the thorn. He talks about how we build our lives around avoiding pain, and those avoidance strategies actually become like thorns that we carry with us.
Yeah, it's so powerful, right?
Yeah.
Because we're creating all these defenses to avoid these thorns, these, maybe wounds from the past.
Yeah, and while they seem protective,
Right,
they
yeah.
actually restrict us and they limit our experiences.
Yeah, we become so afraid of the pain that we miss out on everything else.
And so they become like this lens through which we see the world, these thorns, these past hurts.
Exactly. And Singer says that true freedom is actually acknowledging those wounds and allowing them to heal. So it's not about denying the pain, but not building your life around it.
Which takes a lot of courage
It does.
to face those things that we've been trying to avoid.
Yeah, but we all have the strength to do it.
And, he offers a lot of different practices to help us along the way.
Oh.
One that stands out is that visualization, where when you feel yourself getting pulled into a disturbance,
Uh-huh.
he wants you to imagine yourself falling into this dark abyss.
I know that sounds scary.
It does sound a little terrifying.
But it's supposed to evoke that sense of urgency to get you to recognize the danger of getting caught in those spirals.
Oh, so it's like a wake-up call.
Exactly. A wake-up call saying, hey, you have a choice here.
Yeah.
And the deeper you imagine yourself falling, the harder it is to climb back out.
Oh, wow.
But if you catch it early on, you can just let go and avoid the fall.
So it's about recognizing those early signs.
Yes.
And consciously choosing a different response.
Exactly. It's like detaching from the drama and choosing to stay centered.
And that ties into his whole concept of unconditional happiness, right?
Yes.
So it's not about avoiding those difficult experiences,
Yeah.
but it's about choosing how we respond to them.
Exactly. It's about finding that peace within that contentment that's not dependent on things going your way.
Yeah, it's like with my mindful mints. It's not just about pausing and breathing, but it's about choosing a more peaceful and mindful response to whatever's happening in that moment.
It's beautiful because you're bringing these abstract concepts into your everyday life. You're creating these reminders to connect with that inner spaciousness.
Yeah, that untethered part of ourselves.
That's always available, regardless of what's happening around you. Yeah, it's amazing how, like, these small things can have, like, such a big impact, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love that visual language for mindfulness.
Yes.
I never thought about it like that.
And it's like what Singer's talking about in the book, this power of choice.
Right.
That we're not just, like, victims of our circumstances, but we have a say in it.
That's so empowering.
It is.
It's so easy to feel like we're just, kind of at the mercy of our thoughts and our emotions.
Yeah.
But he's saying, no, we have more power than we think.
Yeah, like we're active participants in our own inner world.
Right. And that brings us to, I think, another key concept in the book, which is this whole idea of letting go.
Yes.
He talks a lot about, like, releasing, the thoughts, the emotions, the experiences that are causing us suffering.
Yeah, but that's hard to do.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's one thing to know you should let go, but to actually do it?
Especially when it's something that's really hurt us deeply.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's so easy to cling to that,
Yeah.
and just keep replaying it in our minds over and over again.
We want to protect ourselves from the pain.
Yeah.
But holding on to it just makes it worse. Like
Yeah.
holding on to a hot coal,
I love that.
Yeah.
So true.
The longer you hold it, the more it burns.
It's so simple, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah. And he has this like really helpful reframing of letting go.
Okay.
Instead of asking, what do I do about this?
Yeah.
Ask, who am I that notices this?
So shifting the focus from, like, the problem to the observer.
Exactly.
To that part of us that's, like, untouched by all the drama.
Yes, that inner witness, that spacious awareness.
Yeah, it makes me think about, how he describes our limited perception as like a dark house with boarded up windows.
Yes.
And we spend so much time creating, like, this artificial light inside,
Yeah.
completely unaware of what's outside.
It's powerful imagery, and it's highlighting that those walls are self-imposed.
Wow.
It's our beliefs, our fears, our experiences that are blocking it all.
So we're the ones keeping ourselves trapped.
Yeah, in a sense, yes.
Wow.
But he says we also have the power to break free.
But those walls feel so real and so solid.
Right.
So, like, how do we even begin to dismantle them?
He says it starts with awareness that the walls aren't impenetrable. They're mental constructs we created so we can deconstruct them.
So this sounds very abstract. Are there, like, practical things you can do to kind of break free?
Absolutely. Like he talks about becoming aware of our breath.
Okay.
You know?
I can see how that would be helpful in moments when we feel, like, really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
To just kind of come back to the breath.
Exactly. It's an anchor, that brings you back to the present moment. And the more present we become, the more grounded we are. And then those walls just lose their power.
Yeah, and we start to experience that spaciousness and freedom that was there all along.
It was always there.
Yeah, and this, goes back to my mindful mints.
Yeah.
It's about pausing, breathing, and remembering that I'm not my thoughts.
Right.
I'm not my emotions.
There's something much bigger than that.
Yeah, and Singer talks about recognizing this true nature, this untethered soul that's, like, beneath the surface.
Yes, the untethered soul, the essence of who we are, pure awareness.
Yeah.
It's not something you have to create. It's already there.
So it's about just removing those obstacles
Right.
that are preventing us from, like, experiencing that.
Exactly. And it's our thoughts, our beliefs, our habits.
And that takes us back to that awareness of the inner roommate.
Yes.
That voice that's always, like, resisting and creating drama.
It is about observing it, without judgment.
Yeah.
Choosing a different way of being.
And knowing that we are not that voice.
Exactly. You are the awareness observing it.
This is, like, our true home.
It is. It's a refuge.
Yeah.
Where you can find peace no matter what's happening.
Yeah. But it can be a little unsettling to kind of let go of those old patterns.
Right.
Of thinking and behaving.
It's not always comfortable to face those fears and those beliefs.
So it's not about achieving this, like, blissful state
No.
where we're never uncomfortable.
Not at all. He
Yeah.
says that those challenging experiences can be our greatest teachers.
Wow.
Our opportunities to practice letting go.
Wow.
Deepen our awareness.
So it's about embracing all of it.
Yes. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. And he says it's not about denying our emotions,
Right.
but it's about, like, holding them with awareness
Yes.
and compassion.
And acceptance that they're not the enemy.
Yeah.
They're just energy moving through us.
I like that reframing. It's like shifting our relationship with our emotions from fear to, like, acceptance.
Exactly. And then you start to feel that peace.
Yeah, and freedom, even in the midst of all the challenges. I'm
Yeah.
starting to see how all of this kind of comes together.
It does.
It's about being aware of that inner roommate, letting go of the limiting beliefs and patterns,
Yes.
and stepping into that spacious awareness.
And then you can experience life fully, authentically.
And joyfully.
And joyfully, exactly. And it's a journey that's available to everyone.
And he really reminds us that this untethered soul, this spacious awareness, it's not something we have to achieve.
Right.
It's what we already are.
Yes.
We just have to remember, reconnect with that part of ourselves.
That's always been there.
It really is.
Yeah.
And as we kind of step out of these cages, release those limitations, what do we find?
Well, Singer says it's a realm of infinite possibility. And it's that deeper connection to our true nature, what he calls the untethered soul.
So it's not about like becoming someone new,
Yeah.
but rediscovering who we really are.
Exactly. Like underneath all those layers,
Yeah.
of all that conditioning and self-doubt.
Yeah, it kind of brings us back to, the beginning and that idea of the inner roommate.
Yeah.
It seems like, this whole journey is about learning to observe that voice without getting caught up in the drama.
Exactly. It's recognizing that we are not that voice. We are the awareness that's observing it.
Right. And that awareness, that presence is the key
Yes.
to like unlocking the untethered soul.
Exactly.
But, Singer also emphasizes that this untethered state,
Right.
it's not like this blissful utopia,
Right.
free from all challenges.
No, life still happens.
Life still happens.
Yes.
There's still going to be ups and downs. But
Absolutely.
as we cultivate that inner spaciousness, we become more resilient.
Yes. More equipped to handle it all.
Yeah, so it's not about avoiding those tough times.
Right.
But it's about learning to, like, weather the storm.
Exactly. And transforming our relationship with those challenges instead of trying to eliminate them.
Yeah, and he talks about finding the eye of the hurricane.
Yes.
That place of stillness amidst the chaos.
That's where it is.
And it reminds me of, like, my mindful mints. Just creating those little pauses.
Yes, those moments of awareness.
Throughout the day, to step back from all those racing thoughts.
And those are the doorways to experiencing the untethered soul.
Yeah, it's that spacious presence that's always there no matter what's going on.
Always available.
This has been so insightful. I'm really starting to understand like the power of this whole approach.
Yeah.
It's not about chasing happiness in external things.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner spaciousness,
Exactly. And that allows you to experience joy
Yeah.
no matter what.
No matter what's going on around us.
Yeah. And like he says, it's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you truly are.
Yeah, shedding those layers,
Yes.
that have been covering up our true nature.
And remembering that the untethered soul is already there.
It's not something we have to achieve. It's who we are.
It's our essence.
We just have to reconnect with it.
Exactly. And that's where the adventure begins.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling incredibly inspired, to dive deeper into this exploration of the untethered soul.
Me too.
The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. It really is a guidebook for anyone looking for, a more peaceful, a more joyful,
A more fulfilling life.
a more fulfilling way of being in the world. So I encourage everyone listening to take a moment to consider what cages have you built around yourself and how can you begin to, dismantle those bars one by one and reclaim that freedom, that spacious freedom of your own untethered soul.